I was introduced to Bengt a few years ago. Bengt comes from the Center for Handicap Research in Uppsala, Sweden, associated with the University of Uppsala, which is a beautiful university in Sweden near Stockholm, the oldest university, I believe, in Sweden. And I've known him for 4 or 5 years, and I met him through a man named Lars Chabon, who is the director of that center. But of concern today really is his history as a human service and disabilities expert, as a distinguished career in service to persons with developmental disabilities and their families, and I would say that's both true in Sweden and internationally. Bengt will tell you about some of the early pre-disability history, but in terms of disability, he served between 1961 and 71 as the ombudsman. The ombudsman, it also means kind of executive director for the Swedish Association for Retarded Citizens. And there he dealt with pressure politics, the issue of politics of disabilities within Sweden, issues of legislation. He established something called the ALA, which is a research foundation to heighten disabilities research in Sweden, and this is in 1961, in that era. He was a pioneer in the area of social training for adults and adult education for persons with disabilities in Sweden. He also is very active in the and established the Swedish Handicap Sports Association, and is very active in international sports associations for persons with disabilities. Between 71 and 78, which is where he met Wolfensberger, he was in Ontario, Canada, where he served for the government of Ontario as the coordinator of training and institutional programming, and then later on for the Ministry of Health as the coordinator of program development and community services. Vice versa. He went back to Uppsala in 1978, where he served as the director of mental retardation services in Uppsala, and I spent some time with him there in Uppsala. Then, since '85, he's been associated with the Center for Handicap Research at the University of Uppsala. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, David. And it's quite an experience for me to be here, and it's very happy to meet David again, because we know about David's work over in Scandinavia, and we also learn from him the very difficult work, ethnomethodology, which is very nice to know and understand. And part of it I related to very strongly and liked and very, very aching too. So in a way I would like to dedicate this lecture to David Good, and then perhaps even put it from good to good. I mean, meaning from Barbara Good to David Good. And some of it might clear up. Barbara was the first mentally handicapped person that was on the board of the International League of Society for the Mentally Handicapped. It's an old friend of mine. We worked together many, many years ago. So there are two good goods. Now, what I could say from Willowbrook to Willowbrook, because through my history and my experience, I got the Bertolt Brecht Award some years ago, and I wrote a chapter of my impressions of American institutions, and I had the honor to have it presented next to the version of Purgatory that Bertolt Brecht wrote for the book Changing Patterns in Residential Services. That's where I published the normalization principle. We'll come back to that one later. And it's great to see this. I wasn't allowed to come here once upon a time. But they sent me to a lecture up there instead to do that. It was just as bad, I guess. So now I could also have a 25-year jubilee. That's what I'm celebrating. So I went into drive Old Willem down in Washington the other day, and had a dry martini. Fond remembering of when I was locked in there and in the Ministry of Health, Education and Welfare to write the principle of normalization in 3 days and nights, because I had to get my neck and had to do it, and because I'm very happy for that. And that started my reputation. And I've been going around sometimes in places, in airplanes and in buses and so on, and people ask, what I'm doing there? I'm here to raise your taxes. And I'm here to blow up your institutions. And I'm here to provide more political power for persons that are intellectually disabled. And then I could go on reading a good book quietly. And sometimes I get very good discussions and talks. And the fun of it was that it was partly true. To some extent, it was true. That was.